Ooh, 4 minutes early. Yeah, I know I'm early. What about it? Let's just hang out for a bit. 4 minutes to go. Hey, who do we have here?
Hi, Dean. You're
How?
right, WyzGyz.
Hey, how's it going?
Would you like to be called?
Uh,
Yeah, not too bad at all. It's 1 o'clock in the morning here.
1
I'm fired
a.m.
up.
1 a.m.
I'm ready to go.
Holy
It's 1
moly!
a.m. In UK time. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. No,
Oh my gosh,
it's all good. I'm used to it now.
I I appreciate you. Yes, taking some time out of your busy schedule to come on my show.
No, it's cool. It's what it's all about.
Yeah,
Really happy to be on with you.
yeah, I don't mind
I've got
either
my
one.
wife on with me. I've got my wife Caroline with me as well, if that's okay.
Oh yeah, absolutely. By all means, the more the merrier.
She's this is Caroline. She's co-creator of Mortal Worlds as well.
Hello, how are you doing?
Oh, good. How awesome!
Would you like to be called, WyzGyz?
You can either call me WyzGyz or you can just call me Wyman.
That's good with you. Really nice to meet you. Thank you for having us both on.
Yeah, thank you. We really.
Oh my gosh, this is so sweet. Definitely an honor. Hello, Tatsunami. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for interacting. I was going to, well, first off, welcome everybody to WyzGyz Entertainment. And we've got a very special guest today, Michael Anden. And how do you pronounce your wife's name again?
Caroline.
Caroline. All right.
Caroline Anden.
All right. Awesome.
Hi.
Very good. So we've got Michael and Caroline. And we're checking out the book Mortal Worlds. And I see it's got you got one campaign. So this is would this be then your official first crowdfunding project, or have you previously tried Jumpstarter? Wait.
This is a relaunch from about a year ago or so. So this is kind of like a slightly modified campaign. Essentially, it includes a featured perk, which is the Art of Mortal Worlds.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like, so this is a 48-page graphic novel now, so it's kind of like double the length of what it was before.
All right. Fantastic. So let's take a look at the intro video here. Dang notifications. Maybe Adobe Spark. So did it? Adobe Spark helped you make the like more or less a slideshow with music accompaniment?
Well, yeah, this is just my own software app that I was using here.
Oh, all right, right on. Can you tell us a little bit of background on Mortal Worlds?
Yeah, sure. So essentially, this is a sci-fi kind of action thriller, 48-page book. It's kind of like Lord of the Rings meets The Matrix a little bit. So
Ooh,
it's
nice.
kind of like it kind of throws into a blend sci-fi elements with kind of mythical underpinnings. Kind of Arthurian sword and sorcery. So if you don't mind, Dean, I'll run down a little bit of what the story is about. So it concerns our main protagonist. It's Cade Saiga, who's like this wisecracking special forces guy who gets usually sent up to mop up all kinds of military trouble spots around the world. But at the moment, the story starts off where he's just failed to capture a really important fugitive who's tried to blow up his commander's home base. And so his superiors, they're really pissed with him, and they send him on a one-way mission as kind of like a forfeit. They think this is going to get rid of him, but he actually succeeds. The mission is to steal an ancient sword from this other dimension, and they're amazed he actually brings it back to them because it was supposed to be like this really kind of like unexplored, dangerous territory. But when he gets it back to the lab, he's immediately followed back by the blade's real owner. So there's this hulking giant knight who immediately kind of sets upon him, attacks him, and this being is kind of been freed from banishment when he took the sword. It was like its resting place. So he's kind of like opened up a real threat to the world now, and he realizes he's kind of been set up. This is kind of like this being is probably going to be the being that kills him, even though he's a very formidable character himself. Nobody comes to help him, so he's kind of tries to defend himself with his sword, and he's clearly outmatched, even though the sword heightens his powers. And the fugitive who he was after originally, he actually comes back for him and saves him, and manages to get his ass out of there, and tells him, "Look, you've really screwed up. You should have let me blow up this base because." This is going to be the end of the world, end of all worlds, because you've just released this ancient deity who is the true owner of the earth, and he's going to get this blade from you, and he's going to finish off the world. And now we've got to work together. We can't be enemies.
Not too much spoiler.
Yeah, we've got to become allies and finish this creature off.
Nice.
So he's not happy about
that. Yeah, I'm liking the artwork.
Thanks.
I forget. How far along are you guys on this project in terms of creating the pages, doing the inking and coloring? Or is it already
the whole book? It's the 48-page book. It's finished.
Oh, it is
done.
It's all done, and it's ready to go to print. It also comes with the concept art book, which is also completed.
Oh yeah,
it's a 32-page book as well,
yeah,
kind of
like
a making of. So we're really excited about the fact that we're ready to go as soon as the.
Yeah, that's one of the beauties to having a project that's already completed, because you have a lot of time to be extra creative and play around and come up with all these awesome stretch goals and stuff. And less.
We're hoping to be able to order some of those. Oh, definitely. Yeah, the stretch goals. I mean, they're kind of start off as pretty basic. There's a couple of trading cards of the main protagonists, and there's a so-on patch involved. So we're also open to suggestions. So if people are interested in, giving their own suggestions, what kind of goals, stretch goals they'd be interested in, we'd love to hear it because we want to afford people exactly what they're after. But yeah, what you see on the screen at the moment is what we're making available to people at the moment if we manage to meet those goals. So there's a little while yet. So I think the first stretch goal is like at 5,000, which is the initial trading card. But yeah, we're certainly good to go with delivering the books. We do have uh, a delivery aim of October
Okay.
because we do want to allow for time to, in order for these to be printed properly and shipped
Yeah,
properly.
absolutely.
But in terms of the stretch goals themselves, those do take into account that October delivery date as well.
I was rereading the section here about creative team and how you were inspired by old school comic ideals of escapism, heroism, and nerve wracking tension. That
Yeah.
is stuff I'm very much into. And you also mentioned you marvel at the pulp heroics of Buck Rogers, Flash Gordon, and the Shadow. Do
Yeah.
they have all that in the? You guys are in the UK, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah.
Do, do, are all of those shown in the UK? Those series
But
on TV?
at various times they've either been shown on the UK TV or on radio, such as The Shadow. But yeah, we're quite big in exploring shows and TV and movies that aren't necessarily very well known as well. So yeah, there are a few things in there, which aren't necessarily household names in the UK, but they're very kind of big with us. We wanted to try and give our own take on them.
Yeah,
Nice.
absolutely.
How did the two of you come to the idea of releasing your own comic book?
Mhm. Uh, Well, Caroline and I, we've always loved reading books like Stephen King, kind of fantastical books. But in more recent times, we discovered comics together, or rediscovered them really,
Hmm.
with the likes of Vertigo books from the 90s, especially stuff like Invisibles, Doom Patrol, Preacher. But we do love superhero content as well.
And
And
horror. I'm a
yeah,
big horror fan as
yeah,
well.
so stuff like Watchmen and Dark Knight Returns, these kind of opened our eyes to what was possible. That the medium is, capable of a much wider vocabulary, I suppose, than what a lot of the public may have previously thought. Although, with the success of movies like The Dark Knight and with the Man of Steel, DC, Avengers, I guess the public now they're more used to a darker take on superheroes, and
Right.
we're certainly big fans of that kind of model as well. So that's really what was the impetus for us to create Mortal Worlds. Although in more recent times, we think that a lot of that spirit of trailblazing in terms of storytelling, it's kind of been lost in order to play safe, maybe with kind of a corporate message of the day, rather than thinking, well, what's best for these characters? What's the audience most interested in seeing?
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. Did it take a long time for you, the two of you, to hash out the ideas, come up with what the story is going to be, what you wanted to focus on?
Hmm.
Well, 3 or 4 years, I think,
Hmm.
wasn't it, really?
Yeah, we kind of like we batted
Started
around
with
the
the script.
ideas of what we wanted it to be, what we definitely didn't want it to be. So initially, it took the form of maybe something that wasn't so kind of sci-fi influenced. It was maybe a little bit more. it was a lot of character designs and ideas about what kind of cool character moments there'd be, building up the characters from that. So it was trying to get nicely defined.
Are you still there?
Quite obviously, kind of their own separate entities, driven by their own impulses, and desires, and fears. So, and
You're still there, right? Is there? Are we having some?
oh
Yeah,
yeah,
can you hear us okay?
Oh, okay. I can hear you. There were just moments.
no, we can hear you fine.
Yeah.
There were just moments of freezing. Maybe there's just a delay. But for a minute, I thought we had some freezing up. Let's see here.
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Yeah, we can hear you okay and see you okay.
All right. Awesome. And did you find it at all challenging working together, husband and wife, on such a project, or did it because?
Yeah, we get that question a lot. Yeah, we get that question a lot. Now, sometimes it was really good doing it. The creative dimension in our lives definitely has added to the richness of them. But yeah, there were times when it was challenging, when we were tired and scratchy, or we wanted to kind of take it in different ways. Or Mike's a real perfectionist, so there would be times when I'd be saying with the artwork, because he did all the artwork on his own, I did the co-writing and pretty much all of the editing, when I'd say it's okay, you have to let it go, you have to finish, because he's got the kind of artist's view of the work is never finished.
Yeah.
So yeah, there were times when it was challenging, and late nights and kind of early mornings.
It's kind of a cool learning process, because you learn to be less precious, and you learn to kind of find the gold in other people's ideas. And with Caroline, it was more a case of her finding out what worked best in our ideas, rather than just saying, oh, we can just go in any direction, we've got all the time in the world, we've got all the page counts possible. It's like, well, we've got to have it kind of straightforward. We've got to kind of a definitive page count that we want to try and hit to tell a complete story.
Yeah.
And so Caroline was brilliant in terms of editing the process down to something was that was streamlined, kind of like a narrative, really. So it's a very fast-paced book, and I think that I definitely owe a lot to Caroline in terms of making it that way, because originally it was a lot of kind of cool ideas, but not so much of a kind of like a straight narrative. And Caroline really kind of, that's where her talent lies, I think.
Whereas Mike's an ideas person, and he did all the artwork, all the pencils, all the inks, all the colouring, all the and all the lettering as well, which was a huge undertaking. So all credit to him. He did it. This book wouldn't be here without his vision.
Yeah,
and being able to produce that vision into kind of visual reality.
Yeah, we're very encouraging of each other's strengths.
But we also have our moments, though.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's the normal creative process, really.
Yeah.
We do bicker sometimes, but it's all in the end of the final product. So we're really think it's really cool that we managed to get there. We're so excited about the chance to share it with everybody else, really.
Definitely, and I hope that and we've really, the thing about Mike is he really honestly wants people to get the best experience possible, and he gives everything. You can see from the artwork, all the intricate detail. He wants people to get the best experience they can.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's definitely because there is so much amazing competition now, not just in terms of comic books. CG has so many fantastic creators have come to the forefront. A lot of people haven't heard of them before. There are some of them that everybody is more familiar with, but there's also movies and video games. There's so many stories and so much content out there. And so we're trying to figure out, how do we get to kind of like a unique vision to our story, so that we can still have something to offer which is different, which is still in keeping what everybody's excited about, but has something to say which is kind of a bit unique, and both in terms of a visual aspect, but also a storyline. And I think we've managed to nail that.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Awesome stuff. Awesome. So do you, excuse me, did you, Michael, already have this kind of imagery already in your head from the beginning, or did it kind of develop and evolve and change the more you discussed it and hashed out ideas with Caroline?
Well, yeah, I'm glad you actually asked that, because that does tie into the Art of Mortal Worlds book, which is the featured tier, the most popular selling kind of that we have at the moment. So first started out, it was more kind of rough scale, and it was quite a few kind of character designs, but also environments,
And
vehicles,
spaceships and vehicles. Yeah,
stuff like that,
definitely.
which kind of like we didn't have so much of a story for them. We were kind of like more searching for a stories, kind of like started off as vague visual impressions. Over time, they got refined, and they started to take on kind of like a 3D aspect. There was color added to them, and notes about, oh, wouldn't it be cool if so and so character owned this ship because of this reason? You know, they may have a kind of like a certain affinity. Like you may have somebody who you know, is more like a kind of a freighter, kind of a businessman, and another one who's more of a kind of like a fighter pilot type. And over time, it just seemed that everything kind of seemed to fit neatly together, as if it was always meant to be that way. So it didn't necessarily start off that way, but certainly over time, luckily, it all seemed to kind of lock together, almost like a jigsaw puzzle.
Right on. Would you say the sketches, the inks, the coloring is all Michael, and Caroline, you're more the editor, the much
Yeah,
of
I did the
the story
co-writing and all the editing. Yeah, but Mike did, as I say, he did all the artwork. I did, yeah, half the writing, I guess, we did between us, and the character development and the psychological kind of motivations between them.
Nice.
But don't forget, I mean, you did have a quite a big say in terms of the way the final characters ended up looking as well, because you know we did go through quite a few iterations, especially for the main characters, and you know, although something may have seemed a good idea at first, over time it may have not been such a kind of like a practical look, or it may have been basically something that clashed a bit too much, or may have just been a bit too similar to somebody else. So we said, okay, maybe this character, they've got less armor, or they've got a different color scheme. You know, there's more of a size difference between the two of them, and so that's why we do have characters here. They almost, you might imagine them to look more like kind of action figures, that they have their own unique stances and looks and postures. And again, you know, we're big fans of toys and toy vehicles, those kinds of things. So
Cool.
we wanted to give people the impression that this is a world that they're almost already familiar with, but yet have never seen before.
That sums it up perfectly, I think, that last sentence.
Yeah. Whenever I look at some of these panels, it kind of reminds me of G.I. Joe.
Oh, yeah. I read G.I. Joe in the UK. Actually, G.I. Joe was rechristened Action Force. I'm not sure if it was some kind of copyright reason. So we still had all the same kind of characters. We had Cobra Commander and Duke
Oh,
and
nice.
Scarlet. Yeah, we had all of those, but they were their organization, instead of, I guess they maybe figured that the UK audiences wouldn't understand what G.I. Joes were. In relation to American forces. but there was the same characters, and yeah, I was so blown away as well by those characters growing up that I was just thinking, oh, it's so cool that we get the kind of like a military stories where you actually have people with their own special abilities and kind of code names and uniforms. So yeah, I was as much into kind of role playing those kind of characters as reading about them. So yeah, that definitely had its influence on the story as well, I think, and hopefully the visual appeal of this book.
Yeah, I'm a big '80s kid. That's my my jam.
Oh yeah,
the
yeah.
the chunk of entertainment I consumed is most predominantly '80s. So GI Joe, Transformers, Thundercats, uh,
Mhm.
uh, Macross. Just about anything you could find on TV cartoons.
Yeah.
And GI Joe was one of my favorites for the same reasons you mentioned. Uh,
I was familiar with Larry Hama's work growing up in terms of the comics, but I was less familiar with the cartoon. Unfortunately, in the UK, because we didn't have cable or anything, and they didn't screen that for a long time in the UK. So it's relatively recent in the last 10 years or so that I actually got to catch GI Joe on DVD, and got to see what we were missing. So I was thinking, wow, you guys in the States were so lucky to have shows like that as well. We did have
Absolutely.
we did have Thundercats and Master of the Universe, and we had Brave Star, but there was so much other good stuff as well which we didn't get to know existed, at least in cartoon form. We had video games and stuff like that, although they were cruder back in those days. But now it's a real cornucopia. I think we're spoiled for choice these days.
yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed my childhood watching TV. uh,
Yeah, yeah, we were really lucky.
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, I like all those titles you mentioned. Interestingly enough, though, we got some British television. Like I was big into watching a lot of BBC series. Doctor Who. Um, I was into
Mhm.
Blackadder, Waiting to Die, Keeping Up
Oh,
Appearances.
definitely. Wow.
Are you?
That's amazing that some of those seem so.
Oh, you get British comedy. Not everybody does in the States.
Oh, I love
Yeah,
it.
those are very kind of like.
Yeah, all Americans get Brit humour.
They seem
so
very
that's great.
typically British to us, so we didn't know if everybody in the States would kind of appreciate that take on comedy. But it's great to hear. Anything's a Blackadder in the States, especially,
Oh, it's one
we're
of my
so happy
favourites.
because it's like, to us it was something so special growing up, where it seemed it was okay to appeal to us. It was that kind of naughty but intelligent humor, which
That was part of
just
the fun
worked
of
so
it.
well at the time. We haven't had so much in recent years, I guess, in that level.
Say again?
That was a lot of the fun of it, the naughty humor behind it, and um,
Yeah, exactly.
I wanted to welcome Fate Salvation to the chat. I know I'm a little late. Welcome, Fate. Thanks for coming on.
Hey,
Yeah, hey, babe. I'm Tatsu.
Tatsu again. Hi.
Yeah, Tatsu's
Thanks for joining.
Tatsu's amazing. He's literally comes in every chat to support people.
Yeah, it's great. Sometimes we catch the same people.
Yeah, I'm Fade. It's great to have you here. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, Tatsu's cool. Comicsgate is such a hugely supportive community, and it, as corny as it sounds, it really does feel like a sense of family. You get to know people, you get to join one another's streams, you hang out and chat and have conversations, while you're being entertained at the same time by the host, and you form these, online relationships, if you will. and you get to see how cool people are. People you
I got that. I'm quite new to streaming. I mean, Mike was doing it with CG UK for a long time before I was, and I feel that we've had a really, really nice experience. People have been so welcoming and supportive. Everybody whose show we've been on, it's like, oh, I used to listen to you, and now I'm talking to you. It is, the people have been lovely.
Yeah, and it's really cool. It's like a bar where everybody just gets to hang out and just talk about what they love most. It's so.
Tatsunami said a wise thing here. He said, like-minded people do magic.
Agreed.
I think I agree with that.
That's a cool that's a very cool kind of phrase I think he's come up with. It's everybody who's creative and also has so much passion for these kinds of ideas. You can't help but create some form of magic. You're always going to have content which is going to appeal to somebody. So you're always going to be able to find an audience. If you stick it out and just hold on to that passion. And people do find you as long as you put yourself out there.
And just to quickly say, and Tatsu is one of the most supportive people. He's in loads and loads of chats and streams, and he's always there to support you. So coming from him, I think that's a really insightful thing.
Yeah, people in the chat are actually just so invaluable, because it's like it's almost like they're people while you're streaming. You've got people supporting you. You've got people who kind of like are able to kind of make jokes with you and just make you feel comfortable and welcome. And it's it really just it spurs you along. It's really encouraging, and it's always so appreciated. When these people they turn up and share their time. It's fantastic.
And also, I really like. I mean, I hope you don't mind. I really like interacting with the chat and reading people out. It's one of my favourite things about live streaming. I love that.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, it's great. I'm nowhere near that point, but when you become a bigger creator and you have a bigger quote unquote fan base, if you will, customer base, it'll gradually become harder and harder to keep track of what's been said in chat. But yeah, when you can check out people's messages, highlight them, let them know, respond back to them, it's pretty special.
Yeah, no, it really makes things exciting for the show. That you've got an audience to work with as well. So so I guess you're doing good. That you've got people showing up here, who are giving their 2 cents. It's always great to see them.
And inviting us on, which was a lovely thing, because I think that was an unsolicited invitation. So we were really grateful to get that.
Yeah. Did you say you're a creator as well, WyzGyz?
Eventually. I'm still hashing out. I've been hashing out ideas over the last 30 years. Yeah, it's a matter of executing. So many of my ideas are in my head.
But this is the community to do it in.
I know. It's what invigorated my passion for drawing. I've got it's kind of a matter of, do I want to pursue the project that is very much along the lines of a Sunday cartoon strip, or do I want to pursue the idea that's more based on like action superhero comic books? So right now I'm leaning towards the superhero comic book.
What speaks to you most, isn't it?
Right now it's
maybe it's what speaks to you most and what makes you feel. Go for it. And you're always welcome to come on our show. We're not live streaming as much as we said we would, but we are going to have people on. You're very welcome to come on our show and talk about your ideas and a Comicsgate and anything else you want to.
Yeah, we'd love to have you on. Anytime you wanted to kind of just share whatever
seriously, you're
whatever
so
you got.
welcome.
Yeah.
Oh, I greatly appreciate it.
But yeah, if you got two ideas, even if you've got two ideas on the go, I mean, I'd say definitely go for it. Sometimes you can work on one thing and get a bit done. Then you can bounce to the other if if the inspiration strikes. There's no hard and fast rule, I guess.
Mike's very like that. I mean, I had to keep him on track with Mortal Worlds because he's an ideas person, and he would bounce and he'd have synopses for other projects, and I'd be saying, no, you have to finish this one. Leave that for now. He's very much a person that he would work on 6 things at once, I think, if he could.
Yeah. You may have a favorite project, but maybe occasionally the inspiration strikes to do a bit of work on the other. I mean, that's what I would recommend. But,
no, he'd recommend it, but if you need to get something out, you have to have some focus.
There you go.
You're laughing, you have to have some.
There you go. We're not always going to completely agree on the same take, but yeah, you know what I'm saying. So you got to do what you got to do.
Right. Yeah. And the challenge is in actually doing it. I kind of liken myself to like an octopus. I've got several different projects I want to work on all at once, but I have trouble focusing on any one particular project to see it through to completion. So
are you more of a writer or an artist? Are you both?
I'm more of an artist. I don't think my storytelling is very strong, but I want to work on that to strengthen it. I know a lot of people who are storytellers seek out artists, and that's perfectly fine. And then there are artists who seek out storytellers, and that's perfectly fine. I don't know, maybe it's ego jumping into the mix, but I want to try and make my first venture something on my own if I can. But
we can, definitely we can.
Being in CG, you probably have heard by now, there's talk about trying to put together a convention, a first ever convention for Comicsgate creators, but also include awards. I'm sorry?
Yeah, we heard next year, isn't it? 2021, I think they're trying to get it together for.
Yes, May 2021, Orlando, Florida. It sounds like it's going to be in a hotel, but I'm wondering if a hotel is going to be enough room to hold all the people, or if it might need to be. I don't know. I guess it really is going to have to depend on the interest. It seems like there's a lot of interest building up, but
the first time around will be the kind of the testing ground. Yeah,
I mean, we're definitely planning on coming if to put this carefully with YouTube, if the current situation allows. We're definitely planning on it.
Yep. Yeah, if this whole pandemic thing is over with by then, and things have calmed down, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be a really nice thing.
Yeah, it would be. I'm really excited about it. I'm hoping it goes according to plan. There was talk about, I could be wrong, but I think Ethan Van Sciver was the one who proposed it initially and was talking to people who are pros at running conventions and stuff like that, and getting quotes and things on locations. And he was talking about on and off in different streams that proposing that CG creators would have free admission and possibly free room and board. I don't know, or I don't know if it's for all CG creators, or because there are so darn many now, or if it's just for a select few, like the really.
It might be for some kind of established CG creators, but with room for more to come on board.
Yeah, I must admit, I don't know. You know a lot more about
I'm sorry, you're cutting out a little.
I literally just know there's a convention and I've never been to Florida, so it'd be really, really nice. And I love hot weather, so that would be nice.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, details. But it'd just be really, really nice to get together and meet other people.
I've never been to Florida.
Have a few cocktails or beers.
For sure, yeah.
Because in many ways, this would be the first time that people got to meet each other face to face.
Yeah, that's a nice thing. It's face to face.
Yeah, it would be
it's something to look forward to.
For sure, yeah. Really trippy. Yeah, so I think with it being the first convention and also combining Comicscape with Weeb Wars and the Phantom Menace, that would be epic. And it would also be, the very first one. So it would have a lot of meaning behind it. It would be history making. And if I can pull it off, I'd like to be one of the creators who can say, I was there on the first, I was hawking my book at the first convention.
Totally.
Yeah, to be able to say, for any creator to say they showcased their work, the first ever such convention, because what would be special about it really is that there's a common bond, kind of like a common thread among everyone there, which is, there's a certain appreciation that, the mainstream may have taken one road, but there's a whole slew of other creators and fans who realize there is a whole market out there that isn't being catered for. And so we decided, well, that's okay. We'll cater for it. We're going to do it for ourselves. We're going to respect each other, and we are, as far as we're concerned, we are the new mainstream. We're not simply a grassroots movement or a counterculture movement. We are a serious proposition, just like anyone else.
Can I just ask as an aside with a subject that's very dear to my heart? I'm assuming you're a Star Wars fan.
I am.
Yeah, that's the whole topic. I'm so tempted to get into it and say, respect.
Did you spot that earlier? I didn't even spot that.
No, I didn't till now. Because you're out. That's out of shot in your camera thing. Oh, yeah. Nice.
Yeah, it's hard to see.
I have to get into what you thought.
I am an original trilogy fan, but I actually thoroughly enjoyed the prequels. I enjoyed watching Anakin's fall to the dark side. I liked seeing how they played out, and also how brilliant Senator Palpatine was, and the whole political dynamic really intrigued me.
Amazingly executed, I thought.
Yeah, some people thought that there was too much space politics and that it was boring, but I thought it was immensely fascinating. And
I think a lot of people, they may have been expecting exactly the same tone from the prequels as they were from the original trilogy, but I don't think that was ever the plan, because we had to get more into the intrigue, and into the politics, simply because there was going to be more of that around. Originally, there had to be an origin for where you got to in the original trilogy, and these characters, although they seemed very fleshed out when we saw them, they would have had backgrounds. They would have had their own organizations and stuff. So, yeah, Carolyn, you want to say something?
Yeah, also to be careful with the YouTube algorithm, there is a suggestion that George Lucas was making analogies with what he saw as political trends at the time.
Oh,
I did see that. We have to be a bit careful, I think, with you have to be careful with YouTube, because you get something called server error 404 if you talk about something they don't like. But definitely, I think George Lucas was trying to look at the issues of democracy and how it can be taken away.
I mean, the prequels, I can't believe how much time has gone since they came out. I mean, this is was it 10 years or 15 years ago? But they still seem so relevant now.
Yeah. Well, Well, you know what they say. Uh, learn about your history, or else you'll be doomed to repeat it. Well, something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And inevitably, people screw up. They don't pay attention to history, and it happens all over again.
Yeah, that's beautifully
Screw up is
encapsulated.
human, I think.
Yeah,
Exactly.
To err is human. I guess the whole story originally with Palpatine, I guess we didn't really get to see so much of an origin story for him. I would have been pretty intrigued to see how did he initially develop, because we got a little glimpse.
There was that fan film. There was a fan film, wasn't there? I don't know if do you remember?
The Star Wars Theory did a great story, but he was already kind of fully developed, I think, in that story.
Is that right?
As the Emperor. But yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing a kind of like a young Emperor series or something like that.
Wow.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, because he's one of the more intriguing characters. It's like there's still
Yeah, very much so. I mean,
much mystery to him. I guess with the sequels, the Star Wars sequels, people were disappointed, but definitely like his backstory is ripe to be kind of explored.
and you know how Disney was all talking about how they wanted to introduce all these side stories, like so and so, a Star Wars story. I mean, instead of making something like Solo, a Star Wars story, something nobody ever asked for, and no one was particularly interested in seeing done. Because there's no Han Solo but Harrison Ford. And if you were even going to attempt it, they should have chosen that other actor who was pretty darn close, not Alden Ehrenreich. They could have done a Star Wars story on Palpatine, and his origin story. I think it would be fascinating to learn more about Count Dooku, and all his, I don't know if they're really inner demons, or just what made him make the decisions he did, and what made him side with the groups he sided with.
Yeah.
And then also
was predestined.
And also General Grievous. He's an interesting character, but I found it really peculiar that you've got this, like, I guess he's like an early android attempt before they got the technology to make Darth Vader, and him constantly coughing and stuff, and having ailments kind of bothered me. But he seems, from what I'm told, I haven't seen it myself, but the Clone Wars TV series supposedly delves a little deeper into, how he was more or less a badass in his own right.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Did you ever see the Glenn Tarkovsky Clone Wars series? Kind of like the Stella animation.
I don't believe so.
Yeah, it's definitely worth seeing if you're interested in seeing a slightly different take on General Grievous. When he's before the kind of the ailments and everything. It does show how he kind of developed them, but it also shows him before then, when he was so much more formidable.
Yeah, he was. That's the way I would have liked him to be in the film.
Much more dangerous type of character. Much more, I guess, in many ways, more like Darth Vader in his own way, but still very kind of quite a unique character. I definitely recommend those.
I must admit, I found him annoying in the film with all the coughing and.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was. I think he was already by then. He was on the downslide. He wasn't as powerful as he was.
No, but it really bugged me because it was so contradictory. He was this badass, and yet he was all bent over, coughing like a wheezing old man all the time.
Yeah,
it did annoy me.
Yeah. That's what
I guess what they were going for.
That's what bothered me as well. But I have to admit, I did enjoy his fight with Obi-Wan. I was kind of on my, you know, I was kind of alert on pins and needles, I guess you could say, trying to figure out how on earth you could defend yourself and have a fighting style that would counter 6 lightsaber attacks at once.
Yeah, they did that well, and I did like the so uncivilized. I did like that at the end when he goes over the cliff.
Yeah,
They did deliberately develop kind of certain fighting styles for individual Jedi, though, from what I understand, for the prequels, especially for Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. So there were some Jedi that had more aggressive fighting styles, and others kind of like more defensive. And I think, from what I remember, kind of Ben Kenobi was supposed to be adept at kind of both, which is why he was able to take on Grievous. But yeah, six lightsabers. I think there was overkill there. I don't really think that I don't think that he should have been able to take him down, maybe quite so easily.
WyzGyz, can I just ask you something? The thing that bugged me the most about the prequels was that Darth Maul and Obi-Wan fight when he literally was like, there were that tunnel thing that was going down. There was an inexplicable. He was literally able to just cling on to this thing and come back out, and I just thought that's so badly done.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about there.
Do you remember that scene where where Ewan McGregor falls in Phantom Menace, where Ewan McGregor falls into the tunnel, and there's a miraculous little thing sticking out of an otherwise smooth tunnel.
You're saying that was too convenient?
No, I just really thought that was so badly done. It's the worst thing of the whole prequels for me.
Well, I guess it was the stunt work wasn't quite up to par.
But no, seriously, that was of the whole prequels. That was my worst moment.
The fact that he had this little thing sticking out from inside the tube that he
for no grab reason. It was just so as if it was so badly done.
I wonder if it's at all possible.
My biggest beef with the whole prequel thing.
I wonder if it's at all possible.
Say again?
Oh. I was saying I wonder if it's at all possible that the tube inside was initially smooth all the way around, but maybe there was some kind of special lever or some kind of control that he quickly used the force to make it push out and give them something to grab onto.
No, you definitely we have to do your superhero comic, because that's a really good idea that I would never have thought of if you hadn't said it, and it will make me feel better about it.
That's the fun part about writing. You these things through. Yeah.
You've actually made me feel better about the prequels, WyzGyz, because that was my worst moment, and you came up with an answer for that. So you are a creator, and a good one.
Thank you.
Because to make me feel better about that moment, that took some doing.
You know what? One of the things I think is kind of not given enough credit about the prequels, and that's the TV commercials leading up to each movie. How it was like an opera.
I remember those, yeah.
Is it operatic? Is that even a word? Like opera style music. Booming and, full of weight. And you see Gungans coming out from the shadows. You see, ships coming up. Is it separate?
Yeah, there was a real sense of kind of like, there was a sense of foreboding.
Yes.
They were really beautiful.
Yeah, and it preceded that style of work preceded each of the prequel movies, and you knew when Lucas was going to release the new Star Wars movie, it was going to be an event, and you could feel the weight of it, and it generated so much excitement. I just love those commercials still.
Oh, absolutely! I could still watch those. They were beautifully made because they had the sense of like the sense of the future bearing down on these characters. Because you kind of like you had a vague idea what was going to happen, but you didn't know exactly how, and so it made you kind of like all the more excited. So this is actually going to happen. Now we're going to get to see how this panned out, and so I don't know whether it was Lucas himself who directed those, or edited those commercials, or whoever did, but they certainly knew what they were doing to kind of like build up that excitement at the time. I always remember the excitement of that at the time.
I better catch up on chat. I fell behind. So Tatsunami was trying to get y'all's YouTube and Twitter, and so I shared Michael's Twitter. Caroline, do you have your own Twitter as well?
No, I'm not on Twitter at the moment, partly because I have a job that's really a day job that's really demanding and takes up a lot of time. And also, Mike thinks, if we're being really honest, I'm probably not tactful enough to be on Twitter.
you say it like it is, and you don't have a filter necessarily.
Yeah.
Well, Mike doesn't think. I mean, I'm very tactful in my job. I deal with quite difficult things. But Mike thinks my Twitter filter is not as good as it could be.
To be honest, Twitter doesn't have much of a filter, though. To be honest.
Well, no, but Mike still thinks it's better. Well, to be honest, I don't have the time to devote to it properly, if that makes sense. I mean, I tried Facebook for a while. I had a spell where I was off poorly for about a month in 2018, and I started Facebook, and I was really good with it while I was off work. But I just don't have the time to do it regularly, and Mike's really good at it. Mm-hmm. So, we let him do it, really.
If I could just say to Tatsunami, yeah, you are subscribed to us now. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Tatsu.
Really appreciate that.
We're really glad to have you.
Thank
you. Really glad.
And Tatsu's also subscribed to some strange.
Well.
But we're glad to have you sub to us, Tatsu.
The more the merrier, Tatsu. I think that's what they say. But you definitely subscribe to us as well.
Which is a really nice thing. Thank you.
We're definitely no longer strangers.
Going back a little bit, I wanted to ask. We were talking about British comedy. Is Benny Hill from your guys's?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Benny Hill was like everybody used to watch that show. It was around mostly in the 80s in the UK. After that, I think he kind of fell out of favor as things started to become more politically correct.
Everybody watched it basically, but won't admit it.
It was actually, I think, to amusement of a lot of us, though, that it was around about that time when he fell out of favor with the press, especially the left-wing press over here, that he kind of really blew up across the world. All of a sudden, everybody else was discovering him. So I think Benny Hill was very delighted with that. He may have lost kind of a regular schedule on the UK, on the UK channels, but all of a sudden, everybody was watching him.
Yeah, he's classic. He's classic. I used to watch his stuff all the time when I was younger.
Cable and everything across the world. So. It was great that everybody else got to discover him.
It's not allowed to say that at the moment.
It was the type of comedy translated really well because a lot of it was.
We will get the SJW hate wave though. WyzGyz hated on if we laughed at Benny.
Hill, I guess a lot of people kind of were worried that his kind of. And too much from another era, but I think in many ways humor it doesn't sell by date. And I think we always find him funny.
Yeah.
And then Mr. Bean was interesting.
But what's worse, have you ever? And this is really. Strike, so I shouldn't say. Have you ever heard of any British film? Because that's probably the worst of British humour ever. His
say it again? A British.
Oh, Mr. Bean's good. In the way I like Blackadder, though.
I guess that's kind of like a testament to his talent. He was kind of like after Blackadder, Rowan Atkinson. I think that's when he created Mr. Bean, but I think that was with one of the Blackadder writers. So that he kind of like they stuck with the same kind of team. He was a very kind of different type of character, a very kind of different temperament. I guess there was more about kind of like a silent movie kind of aspect to him, which is why I guess more people in the world know about Mr. Bean maybe than they do about even Blackadder.
Yeah, that's strange.
Yeah.
But I like the fact that he was so versatile, that he was able to do that. Just play such a different character so well.
Yeah, most definitely. He's pretty funny. I to this day I still remember one of his skits where he he sat at a park bench and he took out all the individual ingredients for a sandwich and assembled the sandwich from from his pocket.
Yeah.
It's
just something like it's something so childlike about it, but at the same time you're watching, you're thinking, there's something about this guy that makes sense as well. It's like, why can't people do that? Just because nobody generally is in the habit of doing it. You can actually just do things your own way. It's not going to hurt anybody. It's it's his own style. There's also that scene where he was like getting ready for work on his way. He was driving in and brushing his teeth and getting dressed while he was driving, which probably wouldn't be advisable, I suppose, by the highway code, but it did make for a great intro.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, a lot of people do that kind of stuff. There are a lot of people who are like doing their makeup, getting dressed the rest of the way. A lot of reports of people painting their nails.
We do see a lot of that actually in the UK.
Oh,
yeah, we do. And the hands-free. They have their mobile phones, and no one uses the hands-free.
Oh, yeah. I mean, all you really need is one of those phone stands that you attach to your dash.
They don't do it. They don't do it here, WyzGyz. Literally, people have their phones glued to their ear, driving with one hand on the wheel badly, and it drives me nuts.
But I'm thinking of like public transports. You get people, they use their phones as makeup mirrors, and sometimes they take it pretty far. They go through the whole ordeal. Of slapping everything on.
Brits can be nuts drivers. I've got to be honest.
Yeah, I haven't seen people do it driving, thankfully.
Oh no, I've seen somebody do full makeup on the subway, but no, I've seen somebody driving doing their makeup.
Well, that is Mr. Bean, I suppose. Crossing over into real life. Was it life imitating art now?
Yeah.
I don't know what that was. I was just incredulous.
Yeah, they must have seen Mr. Bean, I think, at some point.
Tassie says, "Wait, what? Why has he got a haircut? Looks good on you." Yeah. Wow. Talk about observant. Yeah, I got a haircut maybe nearly a week ago. I just am the type who can't stand having my hair get too long and brushing it against the back of my neck all the time. I'm not someone who could handle a mullet.
That's the worst hair. If you had to address the worst hairstyle in the history of humanity, it would be the mullet. Definitely. Well, I haven't had a haircut for 4 months.
You got to be careful. You never know, like what might come back into fashion, though.
Oh yeah.
Never. The mullet can never come back into fashion.
Everything will eventually come back into fashion. It goes in cycles, and then things get popular, they die down, then they eventually come back. And
just a matter of time.
Yeah, and it seems like, oddly enough, I don't know why, but young kids, I guess around high school age or so, seem to be getting into the mullet thing again. So I don't know. I can't explain it.
See?
You know, I haven't seen them. I cannot believe. I mean, you're right. Fashion's cyclical, but I just can't believe that people don't learn from their mistakes.
Hey,
But that's, I mean, I think that's why they call it fashion. It's not necessarily because it's you know, fantastic, and it's that it's got to find its time to come back. You know?
But it's always with a variant, though. There's a new variant whenever
Oh,
fashion does come back. So
yeah,
I can't imagine a variant on the mullet.
it'll have its own spin, a slight new tweak, but it'll basically be the same idea. You know, like his writing, they say that there's only so many kind of ideas that you can have for a movie script or for a novel, I guess, or even for a comic. You know, there's certain basic types of storyline, and you can have a whole load of variations on that. But basically, there's kind of like 5 or 6 different kind of archetypal stories, and maybe I think it could be said the same for fashion, for culture, for all kinds of things in the world. You know, we're just we tweak them a little bit to fit our own needs, but basically, there's only so many things that you know, you can choose from. Just like, I guess, food. You know, you can do different combinations of food, but basically, the raw ingredients are always going to be what's available to you. You know, we're not going to just invent new things. So I think that people.
Well, you know, we have a philosophical disagreement on that.
Well, no, but my point is that people, they've got the capacity to be creative with whatever means are at their disposal, and that's where the magic happens. That's where people can say, well, whatever I've got to hand, whatever the tools I have, I can actually make magic with that. I can do something interesting with that, and that's where, you know, I think that's where the entertainment comes from, and you know, the creativity factor.
Do you know, Tatsu's making? I won't read them out, but Tatsu's making some very astute observations in the chat about some things that will never come back into fashion. And Tatsu, I hope hot pants, you'll be too young to remember this, WyzGyz, but I hope hot pants is also one of those things that never come back into fashion.
Pants, and also the Hitler moustache.
No, seriously, we won't remember this, WyzGyz, but hot pants was an awful, awful thing that we don't want to see again.
I've heard of hot pants, but I can't remember what on earth they are exactly.
No, I was very, very young when hot pants were out. It was in the 1970s, and they are an awful thing. If you look them up online, you'll see what I mean.
Yeah, I think that some things, you know, because I think that some fashions, like from the 70s, a few things came back in the 90s, but not everything, and I think hot pants is one of those things that kind of totally was back.
Yeah, so that's, you know, so it should.
Yeah, not everything is guaranteed to come back.
I did a quick search, but all they came up with was like tight black skirt and something that looked like leather shorts. But I don't think that.
You know, you're really lucky. It's pre-internet, and I think that some things just get erased from history for a reason.
No,
I think there's always.
Oh, Tatsu's saying 86. I thought hot pants were before then. I was incredibly young.
It could be. It could be. No, I was in school in '86, so I may have missed that.
Yeah, me too.
That phase of it.
Holy.
Yeah, I was in school till '89.
But when I suppose that when things like from the '70s became fashionable again for a short time in the '90s, for a lot of people, they thought that was the first time they'd ever been around flares and, you know, platform shoes and all these kinds of things, because the glam rock era from the '70s.
But platform shoes were definitely better in the '90s, you know, because you could walk in them. And my mother always used to complain that she couldn't walk in platforms in the '70s.
Well, yeah, I guess that people kind of like designs. They get more practical over time. People, they find tricks, you know, how to make things kind of like, you know, more accessible for everybody, because they want to sell whatever it is, even if they're recycling fashions. You know, they want people to feel that they're comfortable or whatever. So they'll find all kinds of tricks to make them work. So I wouldn't be surprised that you give it another 20 years, you may find all kinds of weird fashions coming back from the past that people now think, oh, that won't come back because that was so uncomfortable back in the day. They'll find a way to make it.
We've come a long way, haven't we, from Mortal Worlds through to this?
Well, yeah, who knows? Who knows?
You're a good host, WyzGyz. You really are.
Yeah.
The
like
hot pants, really short shorts.
Oh, you found them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did a browser search instead of my rinky-dink Siri search, and wow, those are shorter than Daisy Dukes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, Daisy, you remember Daisy Duke?
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
they are shortest things.
Yeah, I used
that
to.
Is
yeah, I remember Daisy Duke.
Yeah, Duke's
That's definitely a blast from the past. I'm surprised you remember it, actually. I thought that was back from.
No, I do. I remember Daisy Duke. She probably the only woman on the planet that looked good in hot pants. Actually, thinking about it.
Oh, yeah.
WyzGyz, when things like Dukes of Hazzard, everybody kind of watched it, but these days, I guess people have so much different channels, so many different ways to access content. We may never get another time when one particular fashion trend or anything.
But it's too un-PC, dude, as well. The whole PC thing stopped people enjoying stuff like that now.
Yeah. It's probably more anything goes now.
No, I don't know. I think PC stopped a lot of stuff.
It's like they're trying
we don't always agree on everything, WyzGyz.
No, we really don't, WyzGyz. We don't.
They're trying to erase history and get rid of things like the Confederate flag and Confederate monuments, national monuments that have been around for years, and PC is just garbage.
Yeah, it's happening here as well. I mean, they're erecting statues of people that nobody's heard of.
I can
kind of obliterating others. Yes, it is. It's bullshit because it's rubbish because Tatsu says I hate PC. Sorry. Well, don't be sorry, Tatsu. I do too. It's ridiculous because I think it's untruthful.
Yeah, it's kind of disingenuous.
You can say what's not right. You can say, okay, we need to learn from this. This wasn't great. But
you can have a preference, but you can't pretend something hasn't happened, or that things weren't kind of like a land. Yeah.
It's the SJW retcon thing.
Yeah, and it's like when they retcon U.S. history even, so they're giving less emphasis in history books less emphasis in U.S. history books on the founding fathers of the country, and putting more emphasis on so-called diversity, and more emphasis on them. And I mean, there are very important figures who are Black and American Indian and other nationalities. It would be cool to highlight them as well, but not at the expense of wiping out the history of a whole slew of other people that we used to learn about.
Yeah, there's enough space to actually to show the spotlight on everybody. It's not about casting some people into the shadows just because all of a sudden it's the in thing to only be concerned, with certain sectors, in history.
Well, I think it's about balance, and it brings me back to the prequels when Qui-Gon says that Anakin, train him, he will bring balance to the Force.
Yeah.
It is about. For me, it's about balance.
Yeah, I think that strikes a right tone with me as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're balanced and kind of easygoing about things, you can come from a perspective of, well, that might not be politically great, but it's funny and it's not hurting anyone. And I think what's important is not to intentionally hurt people, and it's okay to be a bit politically incorrect.
Yeah.
And have a laugh.
It's okay to to kind of you don't have to tread on eggshells. You know, it's okay to step on a few toes sometimes.
Yeah,
You've got to take risks in entertainment.
exactly. Yeah, it's so aggravating. You know, on a similar note, you know, you mentioned in the prequels and Qui-Gon, Anakin, even according to George Lucas himself in an interview, he was the chosen one, and he always will be. Yet with the Disney sequel trilogy, they try to retcon the entire first 6 movies and say or imply that Rey was the chosen one all along, not Anakin. And you've got George freaking Lucas, the creator of this saga, saying on video that Anakin is the chosen one. And it's insane that they try to retcon that and you know, make moot the sacrifices of Anakin.
Yeah, because there was such an amazing amount of money that Disney spent on acquiring the property, you know, from George Lucas, and you know, he sold it to them in good faith, you know, that they were going to do right by, you know, what he created.
Yeah, I think
I guess,
did
but in the end, they, you know, they just went on their own tangent. I think with very little regard to what came before, and you know, they had this kind of a law which everybody kind of everybody respected. It meant something to people. It wasn't just a kind of a financial kind of property. It was something mythical that, you know, meant something to everyone, and it wasn't too difficult to understand. I think most people thought, and that Lucasfilm under Kennedy, it would be kind of a done deal that they would respect the fans to the degree that if they wanted to create anything new, they would have to do it while still respecting what came before.
But that really didn't take very long. We all hoped, didn't we? All hoped, but just by the end of...
Just don't undo what came before. You know, by all means, if you want to do your own thing, do it, but still respect what came before.
But that's back to retconning. Yeah. That's what SJWs do, and we've just got to live with it and produce and create better things.
But I think we can all learn from that. I think that current Lucasfilm's mistakes, you know, kind of like glaring as they are, it's like almost beacon to everyone. This is how not to do things. And so people like CG creators, you know, we can actually say, okay, much as we're all hurt by the fact that something so important to us was done so badly, and that no kind of, both in terms of the storylines, but also in the way that the fans were treated, we can do things differently. You know, that's within our power. So, and that's why it seems that so many people are rallying to CG. That's why it's still kind of increasing in terms of being a known entity, in terms of attracting new reads and new creators all of the time, because they haven't been serviced by anybody else for such a long time now.
And the only thing I'd add to that, I think that's the purity of motive with CG.
Your audio is cutting out a little bit on my end.
I mean, pure. Bring everybody that accepts, and as you said earlier, WyzGyz become a family.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing and exciting feeling. I think it's very, very cool. I wanted to backtrack a little bit, like once again, and I wanted to get your rapid fire, quick thoughts on a few other series I used to watch on BBC television. Actually, I can't remember if it was actually shown on our PBS station, Public Broadcasting System, or if it was an actual BBC TV channel dedicated to British television. But do you remember Red Dwarf?
Oh, cool.
We love that show. Yes, I watched it right through. I haven't watched the new ones, but absolutely, I love Red Dwarf.
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of Red Dwarf. I watched it originally when it was first on in the 80s on BBC, and thankfully, because not all science fiction shows last too long. I guess maybe because there's too big a budget and stuff, and maybe a limited audience. But
I think
thankfully,
again it was the Brit humour thing, the way they did it was a
yeah,
really good take, new irreverent take
yeah.
on
But yeah, thankfully,
science fiction. I loved it.
It's been with us for a long time. It's kind of dipped in and out in terms of of audience and sometimes quality as well. But essentially, the core idea is so strong and the characters are so strong.
And the way they all
even if
interacted, you know, Rimmer being such a basically an asshole, but when he was other Rimmer being great, and he was my favourite character. I think that I can't remember his name now, but I think the actor was but the actor who played Rimmer, I think he was incredibly talented.
Yeah, no, they still do an amazing job. Recently, they did kind of like a series, a movie, kind of, and I don't know if that's supposed to be the capstone to the series. I don't know if they're going to be doing any more series, but it's definitely worth checking out. They did the kind of like a movie pilot, and this is about the origins of the cat character. It's definitely worth if you're into Red Dwarf. This kind of gets apparently back into the lore of how these characters came about, because they kind of seem ready formed, I guess. That they all kind of like seem to have like Lister has always been a bit of a slob, and Arnold Rimmer has always been very kind of regimented. Yeah, very regimented, and Cat has always been this kind of vain, kind of almost kind of like more of a caricature. And with this movie, you get to see maybe a little bit more in terms of why these people are like they are. You've already seen a bit of it, but from what I understand, that this is what this movie is going to be exploring.
I didn't know there was a movie. You didn't tell me that.
Yeah. It's. I think it might be out now. So.
You didn't tell me.
Yeah, it's either out now or it's coming pretty soon.
That's terrible, WyzGyz. He didn't tell me about the movie.
Yeah, there's already a trailer of it, so it's worth checking out. If you love Red Dwarf, and we definitely love it.
Yeah, we do absolutely. We loved it. We loved it. I think that we both were into it before we met, and we just continued to watch it.
I also like the fact that they've retained the same actors. You know.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, you gotta pay respect to the original cast. Yep. What about Chef?
Chef was that the Lenny Henry series that you're thinking of?
Possibly. A black gentleman. He was well-mannered. He had.
I watched it when it first was around, but I think that was maybe like 20 years ago. So that was. I don't know if it was like just the one series. I really enjoyed the first series, but I don't know if they did any more. But these are kind of shows that I suppose they had they had good actors, they had good budgets. These days, I think that they've kind of like the budgets a lot of the time have been slashed because of competition and everything. So you may not get another series like with the guy that you got in that one, Lenny Henry. Because I think he does a few. He does maybe a kind of like maybe a movie or so, a TV movie, or maybe a very short series in a year, and that would be about it. But back then, just as you had Blackadder with Rowan Atkinson, because this guy, he owns like, from what I understand, almost pretty much a whole lot of different type of cars. He's very wealthy from what he made from those series back in the day. But now it's not the kind of same money in TV, certainly in the public broadcasting like we have with BBC. And so therefore you don't have maybe quite so much commitment to be able to afford, the best writers, the best production crews. They're kind of like they're more on a budget and they're more kind of, wary, maybe even of taking risks. So back 20 years ago, they would have been very much in the idea that, we have pretty much a blank to get some really great actors. We've got some really great script writers. Same with Doctor Who. Now I think we'd see that there's a lot of trouble in terms of
to
them
put it
being
lightly.
very kind of strict. There's only so many. Yeah, there's a kind of like strict message and everything that everyone's expected to adhere to.
Yeah, that I enjoyed that series, and I remember thinking his wife in the series was very attractive. What? How about Waiting for God?
Is that the one like the same as Keeping Up Appearances?
I didn't see that.
Similar. Well, you had a crotchety old lady who was in kind of like a retirement home, but she's always keeping the staff members on their toes because she's very orderly, and she befriends this other guy at the senior home, and they just get into all these hijinks and stuff, and at the same time the two of them complain to one another, and
I do remember it very well. I seem to think that I know the actress as well, the main actress, and I think she was actually a lot younger than the character she was portraying at the time. They just did very well in terms of the makeup and her demeanor and everything, the way she talked. But I think she was probably about 2 years younger than the actual character she was at the time. But they're very good at that, because that is acting. You're playing different characters, and you're playing against type a lot of the time. So, I seem to recall that she was in the show in the 80s as well, where she was much younger, not just like 20 years younger, but like 40 years younger. So it's nice that they're able to play these kind of like tricks in terms of creating characters that you may not necessarily cast someone who just looks right for the role. You may just actually act right for the role, but when you work with that afterwards. Okay, we work with the makeup and the dress, and the costume design and stuff, and you create the character like that. And the BBC is fantastic at doing that.
Yeah, speaking of that, I don't know if you're at all familiar with this TV series that's popular in the U.S. even to this day, The Golden Girls.
Oh, love that show. Absolutely love that show. Yeah.
The one who played the oldest is, I think, considerably younger than the woman she plays. So
really?
it reminded me of that. I mean, if you see photos of her not in costume, she looks quite a bit different. She doesn't look as old as the character she portrays.
Yeah. But I guess that kind of makes sense, because it's a rigorous thing to be able to work on a weekly TV show. There's a lot in terms of like the makeup and the lighting and the rigors of the schedule. And if you're really up there in a certain age, it's going to take its toll. So they probably would cast someone maybe who can play the role,
who has the stamina to do that.
Isn't quite so up there in age.
Let's do one final one. We've gotten on all kinds of crazy tangents tonight.
Sorry, that's Michael. Tell you that's my fault.
Well, no, I mean that's what I'm all about.
I'm the person that always takes things off on a tangent. So sorry, WyzGyz.
No, you're good. You're good. Mulberry.
It is all my fault. I'll hold my hands up to it. Go, WyzGyz.
What about Mulberry?
I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah, me neither.
Is that a British show?
I'm pretty sure. It was, to be quite honest, I remember watching it and enjoying it, but I don't remember a whole lot about it anymore. So I did a search on it, and it basically says it was a fantasy sitcom written by John Esmond and Bob Larby, that aired on BBC One in the early 1990s. It ran for 2 series. The first series of 6 episodes, and the second ran for 7 episodes. Let's see here. They were planning.
I haven't heard that one. I probably need to check that one out.
Yeah,
I wasn't watching TV a lot.
they were going to have a third, but
especially I think that there were a lot of.
Yeah, there was going to be
a that one could have got lost between the cracks.
Oh, you know what? I lied. I have one more I wanted to bring up. May to December.
Mm-hmm.
Does that ring any bells?
Oh yeah. That's another one that I think that I was thinking when you brought up Waiting for Godot, May to December thing I was thinking of. Was that Anton Rogers? Because he's a really good British actor. I don't know if he's still around now, but
yes,
that was. I think that was from the writing team of. I don't know if you Only Fools and Horses, but that was that was a huge show. You know, that was a very very big deal in the UK. You know, back in its day, and sometimes people will be surprised to find that there's the same writer or the same writing team behind very different types of show, but the common thread that they'll have is the strength of that writing. There's a humor streak that they find which everybody responds to, or used to respond to, and they don't, I think, have quite that same knack these days of being able to unite a whole country, and with this, with the same kind of show.
No,
it's it's a lost art in many ways, but I don't know, hopefully maybe one day someone will come along and with the same kind of
Comicsgate.
Well,
Comicsgate.
Well, I'm talking. If you got a sitcom in mind that you're thinking about writing, you get to work. I'm happy to. I'm happy to see that.
There will be somebody who's talented in that sense.
Yeah.
As the movement grows and expands in terms of what they want to create, that will happen.
Yeah.
Do you know? So May to December was one of my favorite series. But as far as I recall, it was short-lived. Well, you know what? I looked up some more information. You are correct. It starred Anton Rogers. It co-starred Eve Matheson.
Mm-hmm.
It ran for 39 episodes from 1989 through 1994. Created by Paul Mendelsohn.
Yeah. No, these were terrific shows. I mean, these days they might be considered a little bit too genteel because people are used to now shows, especially like The Office. I know America has its own version as well. And there's a postmodern humor that runs through a lot of these shows now. And with something like May to December, it was more of a traditional type of humor. It was more gentle. It was more kind of character focused.
More kindly, I guess.
Yeah, rather than, I guess, kind of plot based. But but I think that there is actually room for both. And it would be very welcome. I think. Well, certainly in the UK. I don't know if the rest of the world is ready for it, but maybe a kind of return to comedy shows, which kind of more of a kind of more introspective, I suppose, but less. Less ironic, because I think that everybody maybe is a little bit too cynical and a little bit too ironic. There's a kind of like, a bit like the dialogue that you get with Joss Whedon, with like the Avengers in the Marvel movies. Everybody kind of talks like Iron Man, and it's great to a certain point, but after a while, it's like, okay, we get it.
Oh, sorry, can I interject just one last thing? Because I know it's getting as well, but what's your favorite Marvel movie?
Oh my gosh, jeez, that is challenging.
It's a difficult question, isn't it?
I'm one of those who is a big fan of. Good night, Tatsunami. Thanks for hanging out with us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, good night, Tatsu. We so appreciate you.
Yeah, really appreciate your company.
Have a great night.
Yeah. Take care, Tatsu. We so appreciate you.
I'm one of those who's a big fan of, everything, almost everything involved in the first 10, 11 years of the MCU. I think what they created is like monumental, pretty amazing stuff in what they achieved in the first 3 phases. I think everything has suddenly taken a downturn since then.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that.
Starting with Captain Marvel. But that's another story. I guess I maybe say that the first Avengers movie might be my favorite.
Bang on, because it's mine as well.
Yeah, I think I'd go with that as well. It was a kind of like a lightning in the bottle situation, I think. But I think that people were hoping that maybe Joss Whedon would be the person to kind of spearhead that kind of level of quality, to future movie ensemble Marvel movies. But when he did Age of Ultron, I guess a lot of people, they had high hope it would take things up a notch, but instead people felt it was a kind of like a poor imitation
I
of the first
like
Avengers.
that. It was my least.
So that was kind of a shame, and I guess he went on to do. He took over from Zack Snyder as well, didn't he? For the Justice League movie, and again, people.
Yes.
People were disappointed with that. So I think that he kind of got out of the whole kind of superhero genre, at least for a while after that. And so we don't really know where we are now, because I don't think we have any one particular director that everybody feels, can actually manage this. Kevin Feige, he was in charge, I think, when things started to go downhill for Marvel. So just as he was responsible in many ways in the downs as well, when things started to become kind of very, again PC, and also trying to copy the same patterns that people enjoyed the previous times around. But what they say about diminishing returns.
Yeah.
So I think that's what we've been.
Agreed. Yeah. Excuse me. Before I finally decided on let's see, hold on a sec. Before I decided or settled on the first Avengers movie, I almost said either Iron Man 1 or Captain America, the first Avenger, because I thoroughly enjoyed both of their origin stories. And quite honestly, I wish they would have released a Black Widow movie somewhere around that time period. Well, I mean, the time that the movies for all these other key characters were released, instead of waiting to the very last minute after people have been clamoring for a Black Widow movie for years. As an afterthought.
Do you think that they may be rushed getting into the team movies, even with the first Avengers movie?
I don't think so. I think it worked out pretty nicely. I mean, granted they didn't have an origin movie for Black Widow and the Hulk and for Hawkeye. I think they made it work, and they had a pretty good balance of the different characters and gave you a chance to get to know each of them a little more, and also see the dynamic of them as a fully formed team.
Yeah. I think that they did a good compromise in terms of introducing those characters in other people's movies. I don't know if it was was it Black Widow and Hawkeye that first appeared in, was it Captain America or Thor? I think it was Thor, maybe. You know, but they
Black.
kind of got overshadowed a little bit.
I don't remember them in Thor. Black Widow, I think, was first introduced in maybe Iron Man 2.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right. She was in Iron Man, but I think Hawkeye was first in Thor. I remember
Okay.
those scenes were trying to retrieve the hammer in the desert, and it was kind of
Oh,
like the army couldn't move it, because nobody can move it without being worthy, and I think
right.
Hawkeye was working security over there. I mean,
Oh,
these were pretty good introductions to them, but I guess a lot of people did still feel that they merited their own full movie introductions. And by the time now, with Black Widows, well, people have already gotten to know her so well as part of teams that it almost seems like an afterthought to have her on her own now. I'm sure it'll be an okay movie, but not as strong as it could have been if it was done 10 years ago. So
oh
something
yeah,
like that.
for sure. Yeah, and like I said, it feels like it's an afterthought. Like they don't want to give her credit for being one of the original MCU Avengers, and she's been a key part in their adventures throughout the various MCU movies. So she should have been given the proper respect. So now that everyone knows, well, spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen Infinity War and Endgame, you know, now that she's come to the end she has, it feels weird going back in time and, doing an origin story.
I don't know if this is something that maybe she kind of got into her contract. If they wanted to do more movies, that maybe she was insistent that you got to make a movie about me now, or maybe they just thought this is something they owed the fans.
I don't subscribe. I don't think she's like that. I'm not sure she would have done that. I think it's their timing. And I agree with WyzGyz. Yeah. I think it's off. They should have done.
It might have always been on the slate. It's just that it took them a long while to get around to it.
But I suspect that they, like the Natalie Portman Thor thing, I suspect that they contracted her to do it. She didn't have a choice.
I mean, I do hand it to them that the Infinity War stories, it was a very big undertaking, but I think now it is time that they go back to smaller scale stories, and probably for them to also realize that people they want it to be more about character. They don't want it to be about virtue signaling or message kind of stuff. They don't want it to be about political allegory. They want the Marvel universe to be explored further, not for it to resemble the real world more. So I'm really hopeful that they'll learn some lessons, maybe from the kind of the bad how things were received of Captain Marvel, where it made a lot of money but it didn't get a lot of acclaim, I think, from the fans. I think they'll probably hopefully listen to them more in the future.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I agree with that. And I still to this day I still say that I still argue. Welcome to the stream, whoever you might be. Come on and join in the chat. I still argue that Captain Marvel was shoehorned into the MCU at the last minute. I don't know how much you are familiar with the Captain Marvel comic books, but Carol Danvers was originally Ms. Marvel, not Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel was who we now refer to as Shazam. But then there was also a Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau, who's a black woman. Interestingly enough,
that was the one that...
as Ms. Marvel, she had some kind of a following, but when they I guess reintroduced her, and when they christened her Captain Marvel, uh, they haven't. The title hasn't gained a foothold. It hasn't generated much of a fan base, and the Carol Danvers Captain Marvel, as I understand, has gone through 6 or 7 reboots, trying to gain an audience, and they'll release maybe 4 or 8 issues, and then it won't garner enough sales to make it worthwhile, so they'll drop it, give it a break, give it a rest, and then sometime later they'll reintroduce it, maybe with a new artist, maybe with a new story, a new writer, but it's not really getting people's interest. But they, for whatever reason, want to push this version of Captain Marvel down everyone's throats. And when Infinity War ended, I was looking forward. I wasn't sure what to make of Captain Marvel at the very end credit scene, and what they were going to do with her. But I think to a certain degree, Kevin Feige and his team weren't quite sure how well received she would be, since she was just literally being introduced to fight the big baddie, Thanos, without having been properly introduced. All the other characters, well, several of the other characters had a sizable 3-movie origin story, more or less. So we got a chance to get to know them better.
Can I just chip in here, WyzGyz, and say I've got a 5 a.m. start in the UK, and it's 2:45 now. I really don't want to go. I'll leave you with Michael, but I do need to excuse myself. But thank you for being such an awesome host, and it's been lovely to you. And you're really welcome to come on our show as well. And I hope we can come on yours again.
Yeah,
it's really nice. It's really nice to make a new Comicsgate friend, and thank you for giving me such a nice time on the stream.
Oh, it's been a blast. I'd love to be on your channel. We'll
give you an invite. We'll throw you an invite.
Oh, please.
Thank you so much.
I guess better wind it up as well, WyzGyz, because I got pretty much the same level of start. I've just lost track of time. It's been such fun.
I couldn't believe it. Yeah, I just looked at the clock and it's 2:45.
We're going to probably have to pick this up actually, because I really want to get into what I make of what they've done with the casting of Captain Marvel as well, and because this seems to be where the whole problem with the MCU set in. But I guess we can pick that up another time.
And I've got something to say about that.
Thanks so much for having us on, though. It's been
I'm sorry to cut it short,
fun.
but I have to be honest, I'd completely forgotten the time. Just looked at 3, and we're in the UK. I'm working from home at the moment, but I've got a really early start. I have to get up at 5 to prepare something.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
6.
Absolutely.
Well,
yeah.
Okay. WyzGyz, if our show, I need to hit us up, because
we'll invite WyzGyz.
Oh, yeah. Well, let you know, but the
other thing is the fact that your superhero potential comic, you can always come on and talk to us about it, and we'd be really, really glad to have you.
We want to hear all about it.
No, thank you. It's so nice to meet you, a member of my Comicsgate family.
Same.
Likewise. Yeah, I mean,
thank you, WyzGyz.
I feel like I need to build some more backstory and actually have some works in progress before I start talking about it on channels, so I have something to show to go along with what the story is. But yeah, I'm I'm game for talking about.
But if you just want to like shoot the breeze as well.
Yeah.
You hang out.
Yeah.
You're very welcome.
Absolutely, yeah, by all means. Yeah, I'm sorry everything went from one tangent to another. I was gonna.
That was my fault. That was
I,
my fault.
no, that was.
You're going to find that's how we do our shows as well.
You find that's a me thing. I'm very strict about editing Mike and keeping him to schedule, but I'm also the worst person about taking things off tangent. As soon as you said the fandom menace, I was straight in there thinking I can now discuss Star Wars with someone I'm in, someone who's interested. So I hold my hands up. It really is my fault.
I think we've got a lot more material to dig into here. So
a great deal in common.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I definitely want to go deeper into moral worlds and go over all the perks. So let's do it again.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much.
Thank you, WyzGyz.
Thanks for having us on.
Thanks very much.
Everybody in the chat, thanks.
Oh,
have a nice night.
Before you leave, can you tell everybody how to reach you?
Mm-hmm. I'm reachable on Twitter at Michael_Anden, ANDEN, and also we are contactable. We've got a show called Channel 0X on YouTube. It's just literally type in Channel 0X. It'll take you right there. And we do shows fairly regularly. So yeah, definitely try and check us out there as well.
And Channel 0X is all one word, right? No spaces, no underscores.
It's capital C, capital, and capital Z as well, and a capital X. I misguided Tatsu earlier. But yeah, we'd be really glad. Anyone who wants to join us, that'd be great.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. All right, and I'm on Twitter at WyzGyz Tweets and on YouTube at WyzGyz Entertainment. Thanks so very much for these beautiful guests. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Caroline. Greatly appreciate it. It's been an honor. It's been a blast. You take care.
And we're honored too, and it has been a blast. Thank you so much.
Take care.
All right. Good night.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.